Hello everyone, can you all hear me? Am I audible to all of you? Can you all react with a yes? Awesome. So good evening everybody. Good evening Shresh and Rak. Okay, great. Awesome. So we have 20 people joined. Great. So let's just wait for 2-3 minutes and then we'll get started, right? So how are you all doing? Like, have you been able to practice any of the Python concepts that we had discussed? Or did you all try to like run the git and shell commands that we discussed in our first few sessions? Tridev Soin says yes. Aditya says yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sambit says yes, sir. Kaustav. Yep. Awesome. Okay, Ananya says she was not able to practice Python. That's okay, but make sure that all of you have a basic understanding of Python before the next session. So briefly, if I tell you, from the next session, we'll be starting with Django. And today's session is just going to be something that will again be a prerequisite for that. So basically today we'll learn how the websites work and like what is the segregation of code in terms of front end, back end, what is front end, what is back end, right? And basically we'll try to differentiate between these two terms and we'll try to learn some concepts of HTML and CSS, right? So just a brief overview that's about today's session, but primarily I just want to know before starting how many of you are already familiar with the concept. I'll launch a quick poll. So how would you rate your understanding of the present topic, that is HTML and CSS? Okay, so it seems like out of the 35 people, 26 have responded and 40% of you have some exposure. 50 plus 30, let's say almost all of the class has some experience. Okay, that's really good to know. So should we just get started? HTML, yes. Okay, so let me just quickly share my screen. Before that, I'll launch one more poll. So that's going to be an interesting question because we'll start from that very question. So do you understand what exactly is the difference between the client side and the server side code, or the front end and back end? If you're hearing these terms for the first time, that's okay. I mean, I get the point. Let me just share my screen. I'm just opening my VS Code editor. 30 people, okay, 60-70% of you have an idea. Sai Ritish says have some idea, but not the exact operations they do. Okay. So we'll start from that very question. Fine. So if at any point my screen is not visible, please let me know. Yeah, I think my screen should be visible to all of you. Okay. So I have changed my theme. So do you all like the black theme, dark theme more than the light theme? Yeah. Okay. So I used to do the same, but uh, actually after like I started working as a software engineer, I started preferring the white theme because I generally do my work in the morning. Like I start early, so I like that white screen. Just gives like it's bright and it's like feels that you're in the day. In black, you just feel like it's all dark. Okay. Hmm. So okay. So first of all, let's just answer what exactly happens when we visit any website, right? What happens when we visit any website? So basically, since we are starting from web development, we need to know about web apps, the websites, what exactly happens. So can anybody summarize this in a single line? What happens when we visit any website? Just a very small, simple summary. Let's say what happens when we visit scalar.com. Okay. Just try to summarize it like uh, very briefly. Okay, Sambit, we can collect all the ideas that all of you have. Okay. Send a request to the server that serves the content, Manish says. Roshan says HTML, CSS, JS files are downloaded and rendered. Okay. Ashdeep. Anya says exchange of information between client and server. Okay. Give and take of request, Ayan says. Okay, so all of you are in the correct direction. So first of all, see, there are two things here. One thing is a client and other thing is a server. Okay. So client is your browser, right? Is your browser, or let's say it could be your mobile browser, it could be your desktop browser, right? Mobile or desktop. And server is somewhere. It's a machine in the cloud. Okay. So it's actually basically, I should not say that high level terms. It's actually, let's say, some kind of machine where the files of the scalar.com are hosted, right? So the files will be present somewhere, right? Okay, that's where the server is, where the files of scalar.com are hosted, right? So now your client actually sends a request to the server. Okay, so let's write down these steps. Client sends a request to the server, or your browser sends a request to the server. So first of all, how does it know where scalar.com is present? How does it know where it is present? So there is a one-to-one, or like there is a mapping of the domain name to the IP address, right? So that actually is present in the DNS. Okay, so DNS is a domain name server, right? This is another server, okay, where the information for your IP or your domain name to the IP mapping is there, right? So scalar.com will have some IP address, right? So first your browser needs to know where is the server, right? Before asking somebody to give their files, you need to know where those files are, right? Does that make sense to all of you? Awesome. So then once we know where the server is, the server will send us some data back, sends us the response. Okay. So there is this request response cycle, that is you send a request and the server responds us with some kind of files. Now what will be the response? It will contains the files to be loaded in the browser. Now, what kind of files does the browser understand? What files do the browser understand? It understands the HTML, CSS, JS, all these types of files, right? So these are actually some of the languages that are used in the client side world. Okay. So basically, if I tell you, the client side is something which runs on your browser. So after you have got these files, the browser understands the content. Okay. The browser understands the content of the files and displays the web page. Okay, so that's a simple procedure that happens when you send a request to a website. Okay, so basically now what each of these files does, that's what we are going to look today. What each of these files, HTML, CSS, JS, what they do, and that will help us understand how can we build our own websites, how can we build our own web apps, right? So does that make sense till this point? So I haven't clearly segregated what is front and back end. I'll just try to make it more specific. Okay, so basically the client side, it is responsible to just display the things. Okay, so the browser's job is to just display the content that it has received from the server, right? So it receives these HTML, CSS, JS files that it simply loads. Okay, so I'll give you a demonstration of this and then it will be more clear. So then you might ask, what's the server's job? Is it just to return the files as a response, or it has some other duties also? Okay. So first, let me just open my browser and I'll show you exactly. Yeah, Siddharth has got the point. So let me just show it to you in action. Okay. So I'll just share my browser. Let me just do one thing. Yeah, so I'll just show you. See, I just have loaded this killer.com, right? So once I load it, it simply shows me this nice page. So what is it? So it's actually the combination of several things, right? So if I just try to see the code of this, so how can I do this? So you can just go to right click and you can say inspect. And then in the sources, you can see, or like in the elements itself, you can see that you are able to see some HTML tags, right? So this is what the browser understands. And for every tag, there is some kind of styling involved that you can see on the right hand side, right? So on the left hand side, you can see the HTML. On the right hand side in the styles, you can see the CSS, right? Now, what files are sent to your browser, that you can see in the source. So in the source, you see that it sent you an index page, and this index page is nothing but a HTML page, right? Okay. So these files are sent by the server of Skiller to your browser, and now your browser is able to render them. Okay. So, but now how do these things work? So let's say when I do login, or let's say that if, yeah, let's just go by this example. Let's say when we log in, so what exactly will happen? So can the browser handle such kind of requests? Like, let's say you give some username. Let's say I give some username. I give some password. Okay. So I'll also show you what the request is going on. So let's say I just go to the network tab. Okay. If I go to the network tab, it will simply show me the requests that are being sent from your browser to your Skiller server. So let me just clear these requests, and let's say I just enter some random password and I just press login. And also I have this preserve log option, so that on the reload of page, my log will not get cleared. Let's simply press login. So currently it's not able to handle. Let me just try it again. I'll just refresh the page. So it seems like we are not getting any response back, right? Let me try this once again. Okay. I just go to the login page, and now I'll go to I'll enter some data. Let me just clear all these request responses that are going on. Let me enter 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay. Still it's not working. So let me try gmail.com. It seems like there is some issue. Yeah. So Isha has got the point. It will check the ID and password in the DB. So that is what the server is doing, right? That your browser cannot do, right? Your browser will just send a request that will have your username and the hash of your password, right? It won't have your exact password. The hash of your password is sent, right? So then the server will compare it from the data that it has in the database, right? That's why we have the backend, exactly, Costo. So basically, it seems like I have cookies disabled in my browser. I'll just try to do it with a normal page. Just give me 1 minute. Or I'll take it through this example. So I'll give you one more example. Yeah, I'll give you one more example that will make it much clearer. So see that I have this scalar page. Now let's say when I hit a search, right? So when I want to search for something here, so then what might be happening? Does the browser know that when you search for this should be your output? Yes or no? Like, can the browser handle this request on its own? What do you all say? Can the browser handle the search request on its own? No, right? It cannot handle. because it does not have the data that we are searching for right here. We need some problems, we need some classrooms. So this request will be sent to your server, and the server will respond with some result, right? And that is what you can see in the browser. So that's why we need a server side that simply is able to cater to some of your requests and give the data that is appropriate to that request. Okay, so does that somewhat make sense now? Okay, so where other can you think of it? In what other places can you think of a server side code requirement? Any other websites where you might be able to think that we are using some server side programming? Okay, yes, Arshdeep has got the point. Bank transfers, e-commerce, right? So there what happens is when you give your data, when you give your username password, you are able to see your financial statement, your details that are related to you, right? When you log in, you have a dashboard that is personalized for you, right? So basically, this server side allows to restrict the users. So it allows, like, nobody else can go to your dashboard, nobody else can open your bank statement on your net banking site, right? Because there is a username password that you have to fill, which will be checked on the backend, right? So there will be some logic on the backend to check whether that request is valid or not, right? So basically, I'll just share my screen once again. I'll write it so that it will be clear. Okay. And those of you, somebody asked me what is DNS. So you did not worry about it, what exactly it is. It simply maps the domain name to the IP address, right? So like when you hit scalar.com in the browser, it will have some IP address, some address of the machine where these files are present. Okay. So now where do you need yeah, how exactly that happens, Isha, that is not the concept that we should be covering right now. That is part of computer networks. So once you will be learning computer networks, it would be clear like how exactly that happens. Right. Right. So you can try to explore on this. I'll share some reference on this, right? So it won't make sense to you right now because if I go into that detail, it will take up 30-40 minutes. Okay. So basically it's server side programming is, so now we are just trying to segregate client side and server side. It simply is responsible for what to display and responsible for sending the requests to the server, sending the request to the server. These requests could be of different type. Let's say when you are submitting a form, so they are generally like of the type get or post. In get request, what happens, you just want to fetch some data. In post, you also want to send data. So post, a common example is when you are basically logging in a site, then you send your username and password, right? And the hash of the password. So Sai, the hash of the password that you're asking, it's nothing but we apply a hash function to the password, and on the server side also the same hash is applied. Then both the values are compared, right? So all your passwords that you send, they are secure, right? In the get request, we simply are requesting some page or some resource from the server. Okay. On the server side, if you see, it is used to basically deliver information that is required, right? So basically, just like you search on scalar.com, so basically your browser will send the request, but server will process the query and send the relevant problems or the relevant classroom links, right? Okay. So basically the server side programming, you generally are dealing with some kind of database. Most of the cases dealing with some kind of databases where your information is stored. So you need to basically retrieve the required information from the database. Okay. As effectively as possible. So here we have to write some database queries. We have to basically perform a lot of backend stuff, right? So that will be clear in our like next week when we'll be discussing about Django models. Okay. So I hope this gives you a very basic idea, and it also allows us to use to restrict who can view a particular page, restrict the access for pages, right? For example, your banks, your social media sites, any kind of platform where you have a username password, you have to provide. Okay. So basically, now what languages are there in the client side? What languages you use in the server side? So in the client side, as you know, can anybody guess? Like now, most of you know it's the answer is on the page itself. What all languages are there that in which you can write your client side? Yes, exactly. Isha is giving React.js also. That's great. Yeah, Bootstrap. That Bootstrap is just a library for CSS. So you need HTML, CSS, and JS. Okay. And on the server side, there are again languages like Python, Ruby, PHP, C hash, or JS is again can be used in the backend also. Exactly, Siddharth. JS again can be used on the backend as well. So till this point, anybody has any questions, any doubts? Now, do you have a better idea? Yes. So Sai Ritesh is asking where would Django be used? Good question. So Python is the language we will be using in Django, and Django is a framework built on top of Python, right? On top of Python, right? Basically, that means in Django, whatever you will be writing is on top of in Python only, right? Why are we not learning Node.js but Django shown me? That's particularly like Django is a very vast framework. Node.js is also very vast, but we want to learn something that is easy to get started with, right? Most of the people do not know JS, but they know Python. That's why we are starting with this, and we will be having JS in our next modules, right? Okay. We will be working on both the things, Abhishek, server side and client side also. Django also allows us to render, to basically return the HTML and HTML pages as the response, right? So we'll see how that happens. We will not be going into detail into JS, Isha. We'll be trying to spend most of our sessions from the next class in the Django only, right? Our main focus is to understand Django so that we can build a complete end-to-end running application and deploy it. Okay, so I hope all of you are on the same page now. All of you have a good idea of what is the difference between client side and server side. Okay, fine. So what we will be doing now is we'll be starting straight into HTML. So yes, so today we'll be writing HTML, CSS code cost to exactly, but we'll learn the very basics, right? That much which we can cover today will be so that you can pick up things on your own from there, right? We'll build the conceptual understanding and we'll write some code. Yes, we'll be deploying our application in the last session that we'll be having. Okay. So till that, any other questions if you have, please feel free to ask before we start with HTML. You can take a moment to read through this. If there is anything that you are not clear, let's just discuss that before proceeding. Okay. Okay. So Costu has a question, do you suggest R or Python? So Costu, R is used in data science. It's not exactly used in backend, as far as I know. Yeah, Ashdeep will be building mostly kind of a Trello-like application. Has anyone used Trello? So Trello is something you can try and exploring. So we'll build something very basic version of that. Okay. Manish, I have already answered that. Can you explain 2 point? No, Abhishek, we will not be needing JS. Will not be needing JS. Roshan, no, will be writing code. We'll be building everything with code. Uh, will okay, you are saying the drag and drop functionality that we might not have. We'll have a very simple version which you can extend to any level of imagination. Okay, awesome. So let's just straight forward, let's dive into this. So I'll just go inside this folder by using the cd command. Okay, just give me 1 second. Fine. Okay, I'll just first make you clear how you can run your HTML page. Okay, Isha, please let me know about that. I'll please send me. Anybody knows why git bash man command does not work in git bash? Actually, I am not using Windows, so I do not have the answer for that. I'll just try exploring, try finding the answer for it, and let you know. So no software is required currently. So let's just start today's session. Like, let's create a HTML file. Okay. So I'll just say, let's first list the files. There is just this notes.md. Let me just say touch. Let's say index.html. So generally, when we make the HTML files, we give the first the starting page with the name index. So let me just open this index.html. Okay. So now, what exactly is HTML? Can somebody tell me? Like, is this a programming language? Is HTML a programming language? No. So all of you are correct. It's a markup language. As the name says, it's hypertext markup language. And the hypertext word actually comes like because on the web, if you see, everything is connected, right? So we'll go to a hyperlink tag that is there. So if you see Wikipedia, it has a lot of links. From one page you can go to some other page. From there you can keep on scrolling the web in your entire lifetime. You'll never be able to even like explore 10% or 1% of it, I think, right? So it's so enriching, so deep. So in HTML, if you want to write down comments, let me just change my language to HTML. It's showing Django HTML. Okay. So with these tags, you can write down your comments. So this is a HTML comment. Okay. HTML stands for the basic. So it's a markup language. It's not a programming language. You cannot write down conditions, loops, etc., etc. Any kind of programming construct you cannot write down in HTML. But when we will be learning Django, in Django we'll be learning about Django views. In views, you can provide your logic. Markup simply means to basically to structure something, or like to write something, or it means kind of a layout. Like when you open any page, you have a particular structure or particular styling, right? Display and structure, exactly, Siddharth. So how it looks, and like what is the structure, and what is the style of the page. So how, like, what is the look? Okay. So once we'll be learning the views in the next session, we'll see that we can write down, uh, we can load dynamic content, or that we should not touch right now. Let's just focus on HTML purely in the next few, let's say 30-40 minutes. Okay, fine. So now you know that what it is. It is used to simply display and format the parts of a web page. So can somebody tell me what are the basic foundation blocks of a HTML page? So what is the foundation block, or like what is the main part of the HTML page? Okay, you all have gone into the structure. So before that, Shonma, you can try, any HTML extension is not required as such. Okay. So what is the larger version of what you all are aware now? You people are saying the things, but what they are. No, no, no. We are not asking about. Yeah, now you got the point. Naman got the point. Sarah and Sudhir and Diane. Okay, these are the tags. Okay, so tags are the foundation blocks of your HTML page. Like they basically the base of your page. So let me just use this as well, the notes as well, so that you all can see. Now what I'm doing is, see, I'm using this markdown. So has anyone also worked with markdown? Markdown and HTML are quite similar. They are interconvertible from one form to another, right? So if you work with GitHub, you have seen the README files there. Yeah, they are in the markdown. So they are also used for the same purpose, the markup. So I can simply see the preview of this. I have a markdown preview. So it simply shows me this in a very beautiful format, right? So you see that here I did 2 hashes that simply converts to a H2 in HTML. So we'll be coming to that in a moment, right? So if this does not make sense, I'll go through it once again in some time. Okay. So the foundation part here is tags. Okay. So the tags are the basic building blocks of all the web pages. Yes, Isha, if you did not understand, that's not required right now. I'll repeat that when I'll be talking about it in a more detail. Okay. In just the later part of today's session. So the basic foundation block of HTML page is the tags. Basic foundation or the building block. So now there are different kinds of tags. Each one has some purpose, right? So first of all, let's just see how a tag looks like. So let's say it has a opening parenthesis and then closing parenthesis. This parenthesis is the angular bracket, right? And here you give the tag name. And then you have the closing. So how does the tag close? So basically after the opening angular bracket, you give a forward slash. So this is the opening tag and this is the closing tag, and the inside part is the content of the tag. So that's how a tag looks like, right? Does this make sense? Like, I think most of you are already familiar with how these tags look like. Okay. Sean, what did you not understand? I'll try to repeat that. Please let me know. Okay. Sean, see, tags are like you want to display something on your browser, right? So HTML will allow you to do that. It needs to have some kind of language, and this is the markup language where everything is a tag. Everything in HTML is started by a tag. A tag simply means like where you start, where you close, and what is inside it, right? And every tag will have some specific purpose. Okay, so I'll just show it to you maybe by opening google.com and showing you the tags there. Okay, so let me share this. Yes, Devendra, correct. Okay, so if I show you this google.com, you see that this is an image and this is a search bar, this is a button. So each of these would be some kind of tags. Let me just right click over this and say inspect, and then you will be able to see the particular tag, that is this image tag, right? You are able to see that this image tag is being shown. Outside of this, you can see some of the division tags. Okay, and let's say you are able to also see this these are the style tags basically that you are able to see. Or let me do this way. Let me just say right click and view page source. There you'll be able to see the entire HTML content, right? See, it has some scripts. That's why all these values are being able to you're able to see all these function, all these blah blah. Yeah, we need not go into this. So I'll show you one simple page that we will be building today. So this is the page that we will be building today, right? So it has these tags where when you hover or something, you are able to see that the color gets changed, right? You are able to see some topics, the subtopics. So let me just click here and say inspect. So now you are able to see something like H2, and it has this content written that you want to show. It's the recap, right? H2 and conclusion. So this H2 is a tag. It has opening, it has closing, right? So it will be making sense in just a while. Let's just uh, close this. Like everything here will be part of some tag, right? Whatever content you see, this content has to be inside some tag, right? Okay, because if it's not inside any of the tags, you do not know what it is going to display, right? So a image has to be inside an image tag, a link has to be inside the anchor tag. So everything has to be inside its own tag so that the browser can know what we are trying to display, right? If you want to display an image, you cannot display it inside a paragraph tag, right? Okay, so it will make sense in a while when we get used to it. So let me just share my VS Code once again. Now you all know how a tag looks like, okay? And you all know that what HTML file stores. It stores simply these elements. So now there is a difference between tag and elements, right? So what exactly is the difference? The element is entire thing, right? So one element is a collection of tag and the content. So it is tag plus the content. So this entire thing is an element. Am I right or am I wrong? What do you all say? An element, HTML element, is just the collection. It is just tag and the content combined. Can I say this is one element? Only 5 people say yes. Okay. Fine. So you know about two things now. One is the HTML, one is the tag, one is the element. Okay. Now let's just try to make a HTML file for ourselves and see what is the structure of the HTML page. Okay. So what I'll do is I already have created this. So how can you how can you open a HTML page in your browser? So what you can do, you can simply copy its path. I'll simply do right click, copy path, and I'll just try to open this in my browser. Okay. So I think let me just share my browser. I'll share my entire screen for that matter. But just then I'm not able to look the chat. So I'll just copy paste this path over here and press enter. Then you see that you are able to see an empty page. Let me just print something here. Let's say hello world. Okay. So then you are able to see this hello world over here. So this is your basic first HTML page, but it does not have a particular structure, right? Now it does not display anything on top. Like you can see that uh, this meeting, it shows a live uh, dash or like bar and then intro to web dev. Okay. Let me just revert these changes. I'll share my screen once again. Okay. So basically, we are not using a live server. We are just trying to see how HTML works. So we'll set up live server from the next session. Siddharth, let's not use it, and Kaustav, let's just copy the path and try to work with it. Okay. So once we are through with this, now we need to know what is the structure of a HTML page. So it has several other tags. So the first tag that we will see is the HTML tag. Okay. So this is the starting of the HTML page. Although we got this hello world, it's not a good way because if you just go to the page source, it will be nothing but, okay, I have saved this with this. I'll just go back. So now actually what happens, your content is not actually HTML, your content is just text. Okay. So it's just the text that is being displayed over here at the moment, right? So what we want to do, let's say we want to do show it in a large font. So we can use the H1 tag, which is used for large headings. Okay. So if I just refresh it, now you'll be able to see that this appears a little larger, right? So basically, you are able to structure the page. You are able to change the display of your page, right? That is what HTML allows you to do, to set a particular layout for your page. Let's say we will want to create this in today's session. So it has this particular layout that there is a heading, there is a subheading, again heading, again there are few subheadings likewise. And when you hover over some of the headings, the color is being changed, right? So how exactly we will be building this? Let's understand some of the very basic tags and then try to build it. Okay. Does this sound interesting? As today's session will be building this. Anybody who can do this without any help? When we are clicking a particular element, then also it's changing some of the color, right? Okay, only introduction is doing it. Rest or not. Okay, Shresht is asking how do you get the path? So basically I just said right click and copy the path. That's how we got the path of this page. In the VS Code, we just found out the path and we just pasted it. So it opens this HTML as a file. Okay. And Faraz was asking how many tags do we need to remember? You need not remember anything, Faraz. You just need to remember the basic tags, the basic structure, and then whenever you need to implement something new, you will be able to find it in the documentation, right? Okay, so Dipta, let me just write down in the notepad. So here I have just written what a tag is and what is the structure. Let's go through the structure. Give me 1 minute. Okay. So what happens is, first of all, there was a HTML tag that simply marks the start of the page, and you can write it in small or capital. That doesn't matter. I'm writing, let's say, in capital. Then after this, what happens is you have a head tag. Okay. Let me follow the small letters only in that case for head. Now, what everything is will come to it in a moment. Then we have the title tag. Let's say I give the title here. My first HTML page. Okay. Then we have the body, which is the main part. Okay. Inside this, let's say we just want to display hello world for now inside the heading one. Okay. Now let's try to see how it will look like. Okay. Yes, there is no case sensitivity. Yeah. Now you can see the exact same thing, but if we go to the page source, we'll be able to see that there is a HTML tag, head tag, title tag, and you see that the title of the page has now changed to my first HTML page, right? So let's just see now what the head tag is, what the body tag is, and what the title tag. The title tag is obvious, that will display the title at the top of the page, right? And body tag also makes sense. It's going to be the main part of your HTML inside this body tag. So what is this head? What is this head tag? Anybody has any idea? Ayan is saying what is going to. Ayan will not be using JS in our course. In our this module, like in the next weeks, we'll be building entirely on Python and Django, right? No, Naman, not the heading of pages. There is something more to it. Yes, Anurag is saying one more thing, that is CSS. Okay. Roshan got the point. Siddharth is very precise. It's meta. Manish also correct. Okay, Isha also correct. Roshan, Kostu. So it looks like you already know almost all the basic stuff, right? So basically, head is used to describe the some metadata of your web page, right? So it could be your page title, it could be your links to some of the CSS files, links to some of the JavaScript files, right? It could be any other library that you're including from the web, any Bootstrap library that you might provide in the link tag. So head contains all the data which is not actually displayed in your browser, but that is relevant for your page to load some of the things, or to basically allow it to be searched. So basically it also allows us to give some keywords that search engines can use to index our page. Okay, so that is a separate topic that is part of the search engine optimization. So mostly we people need not worry about that, right? So I hope you got some idea. I'll just open my page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I have a one nice extension. So I'm just going to say there is a browser view extension. So I'll just open that browser view. So in VS Code, you can go to this tab to find any extension. And I think I already have downloaded. Let me just open this browser preview. So that would actually open this part in the right hand side. Okay, so this help us to understand things more quickly, right? Okay, Shresth is saying, could you be a bit slower? Absolutely, absolutely. So let me just go a little slow from here. Okay, we include link to other style sheets. Exactly. So in the head, we could include style tag that allows us to style. So now let's just look at what style allows us. So let's say that we want to style this h1 tag. We want to have it some other color. So I can simply say h1 is this part we will be covering soon in CSS, but as some of you have already mentioned this, I'm going a little ahead. So this style tag contains the information of the kinds of styling you want to give to your elements, right? So we could, let me first avoid this. Let me show you two ways. So inside this, I can directly say style is equal to color, let's say blue. And if I just refresh it, you see that its color has changed to blue, right? Isn't it? So what exactly is this style that we have provided? It is an attribute for the tag. So in each tag, we can also provide some attributes, some additional information, right? So there are three things. HTML has tags, elements, which are tags plus contents, plus attributes. So the attribute will also be part of the element. So this attribute allows us to basically provide some extra information, which in case is the style of this particular tag, right? It has a blue color. So the structure of HTML was simply we start with the HTML tag, then we go to the head tag, then we go to the body, and that's it. Inside the head tag, we could have the title. The title could be part of this head. So it simply contains the metadata, which is something like the data which is not displayed, but it is relevant for loading some additional files or doing some additional tasks or some other important information, like it could be the title of your page, that is the my first HTML page in this case, right? So till this point, anybody has any questions about these three concepts: tags, elements, and attributes? If I'm going too fast, can you please let me know? Karthik is saying if we want different colors for each letter. So Karthik, that's a very good point. Think about it. Anything you can do from your end? So basically these attributes are nothing but, if I tell you, these are just key value pairs, right? Can one tag have more than one attribute? What do you all think? Yes or no? I'll simply launch a quiz for that case. Shinid has given some awesome suggestion. So everybody please answer. 30 people. 10 are remaining. Okay. So it seems all of you are correct. So a tag can have more than one attribute, right? So basically, it's like you are a student, you have a name, you have an email, you have an address, you have more than one attributes, right? Any object in any programming language, like we defined the student class in our previous class, class in a class. So that had multiple properties, right? The properties are nothing but attributes. Attribute is a property of a tag, right? Like it has a particular style, it has a particular ID. So we'll look at two important attributes. Those are class and ID. Why they help us, we'll see that in a short while. So basically, these attributes are provided within the opening tag. So if I write it for you, these attributes, sorry, they are provided within the opening tag. Okay. So and the values could be either in double quotes or it could be in single quotes. That doesn't matter, but generally we use double quotes, right? That won't matter, but generally we use double quote as a notation, right? You could use single quote if you want. So what Chinid was saying, let's just try to have different colors for each of the letters. So what some of you were suggesting, let's write down each letter one at a time. Okay. H-E-L-L-O space. Now there will be one other issue that you won't be able to use the space as it is. And I know some of you will have answers for that. Let's say that this is red. This is, let's say, we can provide hex values as well. Okay, let's now try to see. So what do you observe? Are all these coming in the same line or these are coming in different lines? And can you see any space? Right, Isha is saying we can use span. Exactly. So what happens is these tags h1, h2, paragraph, some of the tags are block tags, right, Christy? Some of the tags are block tags and some of the tags are inline tags. So there are two types of tags on the basis of the width they occupy. Okay. One are the block level tags, other are the inline tags. So these block level tags, they occupy the complete width of your page, right? So for example, this h will now, since it's part of h1, it will occupy the entire width. Okay. And for space, anybody knows any special character that we can use? And NBSP, anybody told that? So if we do that, now you'll see that you get a space after hello, right? This is a special keyword that is used to insert spaces, right? Isha is already a champion in this. Okay. Siddharth says span. Let's just try to use span and then let's see if it works. So if I keep entire thing in a span, is that what you're saying? No, right? Since each of these are block tags. So if you see, this span is nothing but it can be useful when used together with global attributes, right? So it is simply, span is just used to club together some of the things, right? So generally, let's just try to rename all of them to span and then see. So I'm using this handy shortcut that allows me to select multiple columns in the VS Code. I'll just do a tab here as well. And make sure that each of your tags have proper closing tags. Otherwise, there could be strange things that can happen, right? So, for example, you're opening a span tag and you're closing a h1 tag. That is not recommended. So now you see that you got the correct output, but now it's not in the large font. So for that, what can you do? Naman, I don't remember exactly. It's for Mac, the shortcut that I'm using. Command Alt Shift arrow. Command Alt Shift down. It could be Control Alt Shift down. I don't remember. You just have to search for that. Yes. So now some of you are saying we can give the font size. Is this the font size or what exactly is the property? Let's say font size. Is this correct? Font size? Anybody knows this property? Let's just say 12 pixels. Let's use the so basically there are some different kinds of units like pixels, REMs, EMs. We need not go into exact details of that, right? That is more when people design things, right? So this property is not working. Why it's not working? Can somebody tell me what is the issue here? Exactly, Manish, there has to be a semicolon. So you need to segregate two attributes. Like this style is an attribute, it has multiple such properties, right? So this is a property, this is a style property, this is another style property. So now if I refresh, you see that this effect has come. Let's just try to make it larger. Now we'll be able to see large texts. Okay, so now all of you know about two things. You know about the block elements, you also know about the inline elements. These inline elements take only that much width, that much is the content within them, right? So here the content is only this edge, so it will take only that much width, right? It won't take anything more than that. Okay, so if I tell you in short, some of these units are device independent, or like let's say that you are using a different mobile phone. So I'll just change the device here. Let's say in this I can use a different one. So if I use a pixel, so it will be so some of these units are actually device independent, some of these are device dependent. You can try exploring that. Okay, so if you see now, if I've used the REM, what happens? It's almost a constant size. So let me just make it smaller. So like if we are using this in a PC, right? And if we see here now, so basically if I say in short these EM type units, okay, these are some of those units which are actually not dependent on your device, not dependent on the size of your device, right? So like some device on which you are opening your website could be small, some device could be large, right? You are using a small size phone, you are using a large size phone, you are using a tablet, mobile sorry, a desktop. Desktop's resolution could also be different, right? So some of these are absolute values, use absolute like the absolute values. Some of these use the relative values, right? So based on the screen size, they will change their internal size, right? So does that make sense? Like that's the only difference. Like you can explore which one of these is absolute, which one is relative, but that's the main difference between these things. Uh, okay, awesome. So pixel is absolute and REM is actually REM or EM is relative. Okay. So this browser doesn't display it clearly, and like we need to have a better example for that. So let's try to do that as an exercise. Let's try to understand which one is absolute, relative, and explore a little on that. Okay. So now you all know few things. I'll just revert this. Okay. Let's get back to our note. So till now, anybody has any doubts in what a tag is, what a HTML element is, what are attributes, uh, what are the types of tags, the types of elements, I should say, not tags, because but anyways, let's we can interchangeably use them at this point, I suppose, because the tag will have a property whether it's block level or inline. Yes, Karthik is asking, can we use span and h1 together? Exactly. I think you can use it. You can just say here inside span, you can nest two elements, but let's just check it. But then it will destroy the purpose, right? It will make this h as a block element. It will take the entire width, right? Okay. That's why we are not doing it. So let's go from here and let's start something on the lines of the page that we wanted to build. Okay. Some of you are saying we can use it in outside the span. Let's try doing that. That's a good suggestion. See, again, it won't happen because now this entire thing, this entire content will take the full width. Okay. So some of these things you can try to explore now. Okay, Shrest is asking, could you please repeat the use of span? So span is basically, it doesn't mean anything. It's just like used to represent the children content. That is this thing inside it. It just used to basically give it a name, kind of, right? So generally we will have some classes or some IDs associated with these tags. So span in itself does nothing, right? It is just used together with the global attributes like class. It just is used to represent its children. It in self doesn't do anything, right? So let's get to one more tag and then it will be clear. So there is another tag that is div, and if we do a div and let's just try to print something inside this div, that's, let's say, my first HTML page, and let's try to reload it. So now what you see is you see this content, and what this div does, nothing, but it is used to just give it a structure, give it a layout. So generally when building large HTML pages, what you will be doing is you will be clubbing together similar things inside a division. It's like you're segregating things on your page. So if I'll just show it to you uh, in a browser, and then things will make a little more sense. Okay, just give me one moment. One second, please. Yeah. So if I just refresh this, and now let's try to see the source of this page. Let's go to elements. So if you see this entire division, it has its own width and height. Can you see this 1424 cross 37? That's the width cross the height. The width of this is 1424 pixels. Height is 37 pixels, right? So every division element is used to basically club the inside part, right? And you are also able to see something here, that red part. Anybody knows what exactly that is? So why are you able to see a gap between this my first HTML page and this hello world? Is there something that is there? Some of you say margin, some of you say padding. Okay, it seems like all of you have a vague idea of these terms. Okay, no issues. I'll just make that clear to all of you. But now if you see these span elements, does this have any width of its own? No, right? It just have the same width of this element E. And this L has same width of L, same width of O, right? They do not have anything of their own, right? So does this make sense? Now span is just what is inside it. So this span tag is generally used when we want to give some class to some element, right? To some content. Yeah, padding is green, this is margin. So if I just show you this h1 tag, it has a margin. You see, it has a margin, that is margin block start, margin block end, right? Margin inline is nothing. Okay. So if I just show you, this margin is generally shown outside. This border is nothing. The padding is nothing, right? We can click on each of them to see what they are, right? So always try to use this console to the fullest. You will be able to get a lot of information from here, right? What margin is, it's simply to segregate two different elements, right? So this division is one element, this span is another element, so it is used to segregate all these, this div with the next element, that is this span, right? And ultimately all of the next spans are in the same width, so this segregates all of them, right? So does the idea of margin make sense? So I'll write it for you, that it's actually a part of CSS, part of styling, that margin is the gap between two elements. Okay. And the HTML tags that we have seen till now, they are simply the basic HTML head, body, and title. Okay. After that, we have seen this h1 tag, and we have seen this span and div. Okay. Fine. So let's now do one thing. Let's try to explore some other simple tags, and before that I'll launch a few quizzes. So I have a few quizzes for you. I'll just launch that, so to see how much attention you people are paying and how much you already know ahead of me. This one is very simple. We have been using it a lot till now. If you answer this incorrectly, then I do not have anything to say. It just means that the last half an hour you were just confused. Time is running, everybody. Please answer quickly. So those of you who answered head and heading one, I would just like to know, why did you answer that? Any particular reasons for that? Christy is leading. That's great. So Siddharth, you are on fourth. Pressed by mistake. Okay. So one more quiz. This we have not discussed, but let's just go through it right after this. Okay. Leaderboard just changed in one question. That means it was partial for those who already know it, I guess. Isha is leading now. That's great. Nihil is at 2. Okay, you were constant. So no worries, let's just learn about this tag. Okay. So let me just, okay, yeah. So let's just go through some of other tags and then we'll build the page that we saw earlier. Okay. So there are some tags that allow us to create lists. Those are ordered list. For ordered list, sorry, for the numbered list, we have this tag OL. For the unordered list or the bulleted lists, we have this tag UL. That simply means the unordered list, right? So O stands for ordered here, U stands for unordered. So let me just make it for you. So see, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list just after it. And now what we can do is we can simply use the li. Okay. And I'm going to show you one more interesting thing. So let's see, there is a shortcut in VS Code that you can configure that is known as the emits. I'm not sure if I pronounce it correctly. I say emis or emits. So we can Google the pronunciation anyways. So it allows us to like quickly write the tags also with the classes. So you see that if I say li dot and it shows me MA abbreviation. So I can simply pass in any attribute here. Let's say that I pass in style is equal to, okay, is equal to won't work. So let's say li dot style. Then I press tab. So I have just typed till here and I press a tab. It will automatically, okay, it will automatically take me to the value, right? Here I can say that list one. Okay. And let me give this class name as list item. Okay. And let me make another such element li with class is equal to, let's say, list item again, and then let's give item 2. Okay. I want to give it a class list item again. Now, why classes are useful, it will be clear in a short while. It simply allows us to do some styling easily on different similar kinds of tags, right? It's like you want to group together similar kinds of tags, right? So this list item, all the items of this ordered list, we are giving them a single identification by the class. It's like you are studying in, let's say you are studying in November Elitex batch. So all of you belong to a particular class. Similarly, all of these elements now belong to this list item class, right? I could give this class directly here. Let me give this class maybe list ordered. Okay. Or let's just say that it's a class is equal to my first list, anything, right? And inside we have these items which have list items. So li tag is actually used to specify a list item, right? Li is for list item. So a list should have multiple items. Those are given by the li tag. Now let's just build one more. Li class is equal to list item. Let's just say item 2. Now let's try to see what happens. Okay, now we are able to see that we got these 3 ordered items, right? Now similar goes for the ul. Let's just make one more. I have just copied this. Okay, my browser isn't, editor isn't working. Let's say my second list. And let's now say that it's a list 2 underscore underscore item. Okay. And if you see, we got these circles or these bullets in the second list. If we want to change this, there is a attribute type, and let's say we want disk like bullets. So in this case, if you see, we'll get disk type bullets. I'm not sure why that's not being recognized. Or let's just say, yeah, in case you see type equal to circle works, right? I think Closing tag is still order L. Closing tag for UL. Okay. Yeah. That's why you see that strange behavior was happening. Let's now use disk. Disk is this only, and any other type you remember? Anybody knows any other type? Yeah, browser it auto fixing currently square. Let's just use square. Yeah, square looks nice. Okay, so that's how you can create lists. So you have this unordered list. Inside this, you have this list items, right? So is li a block element or is it an inline element? What do you all say? Is it an inline element or is it a block element? Is it taking the full width or is it taking the only the width of the content? Yeah, Roshan, correct. Ananya, it's not inline. See, it is taking the full width. So if you see item 2 is taking the full width of the page, the entire width. Did you get it? If like in the span tag, what is happening is after the first span, the next span is just following it, just to the right of it. That means the width is nothing for it, right? Okay. So all of you have understood some of the very basic things here. Okay. Now what we will be doing is we will be learning about some other tags. We till now we haven't seen how do we link between the different tags, right? So how do we create hyperlinks? That's what the power of web is, right? To create links from one page to the other page. If you open Wikipedia, you will see enormous amount of references, right? So yeah, there is this anchor tag that's hyperlink tag. Basically, this a tag, anchor tag, allows you to link to some other page. So it has an attribute href that you can simply provide the location. Let's say that I simply want to go to scalar.com. I'll simply say go to Scalar. So this is the text and this is the link where it needs to go to. And let me just hit refresh. Now if you click here, it will take you to scalar.com, right? So you see that it took us to the scalar.com page, and this page looks quite awesome. It's quite mobile responsive, right? It has good CSS. Let's just go back. So now do you understand how it works? And it also has some other attributes. Let's say you want to open this in a new tab. In that case, what you all can do? Anybody has any idea? Sambit is giving the link tag. Yeah, if you want to open it new tab, you can simply say target is equal to underscore blank. If now I click it, it will open in a new tab. I think I did not refresh it. Yeah, you see that it opens a new browser preview window for me. Okay. Fine. So, okay. Manish, how do you think that? Okay, target equal to and hash will also work. Fine. So now let's go through what else tags do you all know? What else do you see in a web page? Anything else that we have not covered? Right, Siddharth is right on to the point. Image. So there is an image tag. Let me just open a good enough HTML5 image. I'll just open a link to some good HTML5 image and let's try to embed it. Yes, section is another tag. Okay. Okay, I already have it. So I'll just copy it and I'll show it to you. Marquee. Marquee has been too old now. So this image tag, it allows us to embed an image on our page, right? So I can simply say img, and this src attribute allows us to give the location where this image is, right? So you can see this image URL, right? So if I just now refresh it, you will see that this image of HTML5 appears, right? And generally we could also provide the alternate text for this image in case this image does not load. Okay. In case the server does not work, like this image where it is stored, that server is not working, so then in that case you will be shown with this alternate text, right? Yeah, there is another tag that is for table. So let's say you want to display some kind of table. So in that you can simply have the table rows. Inside table rows you can have the table data, right? And let's say that we want to show, we also have the th tags for the table headings. So let's say we want to show the language, and then we want to show that what is its application. So let's just make a table for the languages and their applications. So here we can simply say that JavaScript is the front end thing and it's also used on backend as well. So let's say front end and backend. And Python is what we will be going into deep. It's used mostly for backend, right? But we'll see some kind of other interesting things that allow us to write some kind of programming things in the HTML templates that we'll be making. So stay tuned for that in our upcoming sessions, and let's just keep it till two languages in this table. So if I just hit refresh now, you will be able to see this table, but it's not rendering clearly. So let me just stop sharing my screen and go to the browser. Okay, fine. So Sambit TSDD. Okay. Right. So you cannot see anything outside, like you are not able to see the borders of this table. So for that, anybody knows any command? So see, I'll just use this reference to find out the right property, this CSS reference. I'll just search for border. So border is a style that, let's just see what's the border color attribute. So this property we can give to our table. So let's just give some green border. Let's say I'll copy this and I'll just say that table has this style attribute. Just refresh it now. Will you be able to see something? No. So let's just see how can we give this table a nice border. So let's go to the console. Let's find out where this element is. Okay, where this table is. Okay, so it's here. And let's just give it some border. So we haven't actually given it some border, I think. Still it doesn't work. So this is a table body. Let's just try to give it some border. Okay. We can also change our properties right into the console so that we are able to see it in action live in the browser. Let's just see, try to give border to this. We are not able to see anything, right? Okay. So this is an interesting exercise that you people have now, how to basically give border to a particular table. Okay, HTML have border attribute, give border size, border equal to 1. Okay, border is a style actually, it is used for some kind of item. So let's just see if we can give it to a particular list or a div. Let's just try it with a div. So we'll experiment with this. So writing CSS is not that easy. actually have to find out where exactly to apply this CSS, right? I myself am not too good at it, right? So you will have to give size and color, right? Border 1 pixel, solid, black. Right. So let's just try it with this div. Exactly. So we also need to provide two other things. So now how exactly do we know what is that we need to give? So we actually have to follow some kind of documentation. So let's just search border here, this property, and let us find it out. This, okay. So it will show us what all is required as a value. So you see that this order is important. That is, first you give the width. What we were trying to do, we were first trying to give the color. First we need the width. The width of this is 4 pixels. What is the style? In this case it is dotted, in this case it is solid. And what is the color? Here it is red. Here the color is optional. Only the color is optional, right? So that is why reading documentation is really important when we are doing CSS, right? So now let's just try to give this table as the border that we wanted to. Okay. So I haven't memorized any of these things, and I generally do not work with CSS. So that's why let's just say 1 pixel solid, and let us say color is optional. And if you want the border for each of these rows, then also you could have specified. Now my one question to you is, you want a border for each of these rows. So what exactly are you going to do? So first of all, let's just give this over here. Let's say 1 pixel black and solid. Fine. If we want to give a border to each of these rows, so I'll just copy this here, let's say, and paste it. Let's just do it here again. Refresh. Let's just do here again and refresh. So do you notice anything that has happened? And let us just change these after cells to TD, because only the first of the row is for the heading, rest are for the data, right? I understand Sambit that will give the border for the entire table, right? But we were trying to do it in a different way, right? So let me do what you are saying, right? That will work definitely, but we are trying to not give this the border by using this. We were trying to use the CSS properties, right? So this style properties is what we were trying to see. Okay. So it turns out that I'm not able to figure it out right now. So you people should also try this as an exercise if this is possible. Okay. So this would be something interesting, but let's change our gear at the moment. Let's just focus on something else now. Okay. So you all have understood some very basic HTML syntax, some basic tags, right? So anyways, we won't be remembering everything. So that is why there is this documentation that we have also provided you in your reference material, right? So you can follow the Mozilla documentation for HTML as well as for CSS. For CSS, you can also follow this site or any other reference site, but we always will be needing the documentation because we cannot remember everything, right? So now let's just understand what other ways are there for CSS and why this class was important. So let's say I want to give a let's say some kind of color to all the elements that have this particular class. So is there any way without copy pasting this style attribute again and again? I can do that. So I'll just have to say style equal to color, let's say red. I'll just have to copy paste it 3 times, right? Now if I do this, you see all these have become red, but we do not want to copy paste our code, right? So do not repeat yourself is a good coding principle that goes by the name DRY, right? As much as possible, we should not try to repeat the code. That makes things redundant. Exactly. So what we can do, we can go into the head, we can create a style tag, and here we can write down our CSS. So CSS simply allows to make the styling easier. We have used CSS till now also, where we were giving the styles inside this style tag. That was inline CSS, right? So there are 3 types of CSS. So I'll just type here. We have also seen the tables, images, and the anchor tag. Now CSS, we have basically 3 ways of actually importing CSS. That is, first is inline CSS. Second is we use the style tag. And third is we use some external file. So now you people will tell me which is the best way. First, let's understand how we can color all the elements of a given class. So how CSS looks like is you can first give the first you can give a selector. There are 3 things involved. So let me write down. There are again 3 things. First is the selector, third is the second is the property, and third is the value. So the selector is what element you are selecting. You need to give style to a particular element. So you need to specify either its class or its ID or the tag itself, right? The property is like the background, or it's like the border, it's like the color. It could be the font size. It could be anything, right? It could be the background color, something like that. Value would be the value of that particular property. Okay. So we can give a class property like dot, let's say dot, and the class name of our list item is list underscore underscore item. Okay. And let me just change it to color equal to red. Okay. And now let's try to remove all this styling over here that we have provided in the attributes. So now if we refresh this page, you will be able to see that all of these have the red color. And by just few lines, we have made this change. So isn't that simple? You can select all the elements that specify this property and give a uniform styling to all of them. So that is what CSS is, right? So I'll just launch a short quiz. We have seen 2 ways of linking CSS files, but we haven't seen the third way. So which of these is the best practice? So inline is where you are giving the style tag itself, the style attribute itself. Okay, it looks like we have mostly correct answers, but okay, looks like the participation has gone a little less now. Are you people feeling bored? So I know HTML and CSS is not everybody's like cup of tea. It's not everybody wants to do or everybody can do, but it is the base of the web pages that you see. There is some HTML underlying every web page you visit. Without it, there is no web page, right? Even when we'll be writing the Django application, we'll have some front end, right? Without front end, back end is useless. What do you all say? Yes or no? Please do react. So what will you prefer? So I'll just have a short question in my mind. What will you prefer? Will you prefer an application that looks very good, that works good, or will you prefer an application that does not look good and kind of does the job slightly better, like is at least, let's say, 1% faster? So will you prefer 1% faster application with a poor UI, or the good looking with uh, right. So all of you are saying you will prefer the one that looks better, right? Because you want to use applications that are good, well finished, right? Yeah, it's boring in start. When we start creating the things, when we start building some large applications, it becomes easy. Yes, Samvit is saying right. User engagement, user experience, right? Okay, so I'll just close this page here, and let's now see how we can link external CSS. Okay. So till this point, anybody has any questions? I'll just pause and take any questions, and then we'll just try to build something simple and within the next 10-15 minutes. So hope that you all have got a good amount of idea of front end. Okay. So it looks like there are no questions till now. Any random question, anything? Manish is asking any other markup languages. Markdown is one you can try exploring. XML is not exactly markup meta language. Costo, I'm not exactly sure about that. Okay. Sambit, Django is mostly going to be used as a server, right? So you will be getting requests from your browser, and how you handle those requests, you'll be writing the server side code for that, right? So it is used for the server side programming, right? How to handle a given request. So we'll be building our own server using Django, right? That will take in some request from the browser, give some response back. Naman, there are specific extensions for specific things. Like if you see, I'll just show it to you. So just give me 1 minute. Okay. So if you see that this extension that I'm using currently is nothing like it's a I just have few extensions in my VS Code. One of them is Prettier. It simply allows to like format your document. So if you just say go to the commands and say format document, it'll simply like refactor this, so that becomes easier to read. Right. So basically any other extensions as and when we go. So basically for Python, we would recommend you to install PyCharm IDE, but you can work with VS Code also, PyCharm Community Edition. I'll just write down some next steps for you before the next session. And we are not closing right now. We have this to make, right? We'll be making this, do not worry. So you will have to install the PyCharm IDE if possible. Like if you want, install Django. We have already provided some references for that. And also regarding the PyCharm Community Edition ID is one thing, or you can use VS Code as well. That works perfectly fine. But I would say go with PyCharm Community Edition, because since you will be just starting, it will be easy to Sambit, you're asking what Django do in web page. So basically, Django will not do anything on your client side. It will be your server side programming, right? Siddharth, I already answered that earlier. Yeah, in Python, mostly Linux is pre-installed. Okay. So I'll fill it for you before we wrap up. Like, let's just see a few more things here. Okay. So what we were seeing is how do we make external CSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to use the link tag. It allows us to give a relative path, or here I think we have to provide the style sheet. We just want to link a style sheet, and the source is, let's say, uh, just give me 1 second. I'll just open this index.html that we will be creating anyways. Okay, you just have to provide href, not the okay. In relative, you need style sheet and not the source. The source is generally used when we deal with JavaScript. Let's say href, and let's just try to create a index.css. Okay, fine. Let me just do one thing. Let me just change it to HTML. And if you see, this tag is actually self-closing tag. There are some tags in there are some tags, there are some kind of tags which do not have a closing tag. They can be closed in the opening tag itself by giving us / just before the closing angular bracket, right? So we have got one more thing in HTML. Any other example of this self-closing tags? One more example is BR, right? Exactly, Naman. Because it's not going to have any content here, it just specifies the path. Let me just create a index.scss. Sorry, index.css. I've got used to SCSS. And let's just copy this entire thing here. And let me just remove it. And let's just see this page in action. You see that it still works, right? So if you just go to the sources, it will show you that an index.css file has also been loaded now, right? So this head tag, if you see, it allows us to know what external files do we need to load from the files that we have. Here we need to load this index.css as well from the same location. So it is a relative path, right? From the current directory, it will look up for index.css. Let me just give it some other name, index2. Now if you load the page, it's not going to work because the items now you see are not colored in red. And was index.css loaded? Was that file loaded for you? Yes or no? No, right? Because that was not linked to your HTML page, right? The reference for that was not provided in your HTML page. That's why this file is not even loaded, right? Yes, Isha says image is also a self-closing tag, right? Here image is also a self-closing tag. Exactly. So we can transfer all these stylings that we had to the index.css, right? Now, how will we style the particular span elements? Any ideas? Will we give it some class for each of them? And how should we give the classes? Right, so we'll give some classes. Let's say that class is blue, or let's say color blue, something like that. Right, we'll give some relevant classes so that they can be reused as well. So any element with which we give this class will be colored blue, right? So we can say dot color blue, color becomes blue, right? And let's just remove this thing now. So why exactly this helps us, this external CSS? What is the use case for this? Anybody? The use case is multiple HTML files can then use the same CSS, as Siddharth is saying exactly. So now if we want the same piece of stylings to be reused in some other file, we can definitely do that. We can just load this CSS by using this link tag, right? Okay. So you can cover all of this. Let's not get through that. And similarly, you can just give some class to this, or this time let's give this some ID. So if we give this some ID, let us say that this has an ID of first my table, or let's say language table. Now, how do we give style to a particular table, to a particular ID? How do we select it in the CSS? Any ideas? Which selector we have to use? So for a class, we use dot as a selector. For ID, we can use hash as a selector. So let's just say hash, what name we had given, language table, right? Now let's just try to see. Some of your messages are not loading. Okay, not sure why. Disappearing messages because of hash. We see that it works perfectly fine. You are not able to see this border, isn't it? So this is not working for you, right? Let's see what was the issue. Okay, the issue is we have not provided the correct name for the file, right? So it should be index.css, index.css, my bad. Now we are able to see that it perfectly works. Okay. So cool. So till this point, we have seen a lot of things, right? But definitely very basics. So as to give you an idea of how things are working. Doesn't print hash. Okay. So I'll just write this down also, that this is preferred for reusing the same HTML. Okay. There are a lot of different properties, lot of different things you can explore. There is another thing that allows you to lay out your pages well using CSS. So for example, what tag should take how much space. So basically there is a flexbox and grid. There are two things. So I'm just naming them because we will not be able to cover this. Like this is mostly some kind of advanced UI things. You can try to explore this. I'll be sharing you a nice reference for the flexbox. So that is kind of like a game. So yeah, basically I'll be adding the reference and just try to uh, use that reference to the fullest. That's very interesting. Just have a look after the class. I'll add it. And what else is missing? So actually, anything that you think in HTML, CSS we are missing that we have covered, have not listed in this notes. HR, footer. No, there are a lot of things. But the idea is what we have covered till now. You're right, Aditya, Flexbox Froggy. I'll be sharing that link. Okay. So all of you have a brief idea. Let's do one thing now. Let's try to build this kind of page. Okay. So let's make a new file. Let's say index2.html, or let's say that table of contents we are making. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with a brief HTML template. I'll just change the extension to be HTML. Just say HTML and hit it with HTML and HTML5. Okay. So you need not worry about these meta tags right now, right? So it's okay if you don't understand it. It's not too relevant. And there is one more thing that comes up when you use this HTML template provided by VS Code, is that it has a doc type element that is in the start, right? So this actually specifies the version of the HTML. So this is generally used to specify the version. So this allows us, this browser by this doc type statement understands that this is a HTML5 document, right? Now let's try to see what all is there. So first of all, you can see there are these headings. Inside these headings, there are these subheadings, right? So let me create one heading for introduction. Let me just say H1, introduction. Inside this, let's maybe use H2 for the second subheadings. Okay. Let's say H2, and it is whom this class is for. Okay. Then let's make another H1 that will say HTML. Then let's say H2. Inside this, we have what you will learn in this chapter. Okay. After that, what we have is summary. After that, we have CSS. Inside this, we have, let's say, H2 recap. Then we have H2, which is conclusion. Okay. And let's just try to see how it will look like. Any guesses how bad it will look like? So it's nothing like this, right? If we compare it, it's nothing like this. Okay. So let us try to style this. So now what is missing in this? Just is mostly covered, but styling is rest, right? So without styling, it looks very dull. Okay. So you see, this is somehow covering this entire element. We are giving some kind of background color to this entire element, right? So all these three, and all these H1 tags, all these H2 tags have similar styling, right? So what if we use a selector? Let's say that style. Let's use the link. Let's use a style sheet. Let's say that index, or let's say toc.css. Okay, so I'll create a file toc.css, and what we are going to do is we are going to style these h1 tags of one way. So instead of dot and hash that we have seen for classes and IDs, there is directly for h1 and for h2. We can specify tags directly, right? So let's give a background color of blue for h1. Let's see, light blue is there. Okay. And for h2, let's give the text color of red. Okay. And this has this border at the bottom, right? So let's just try to see border bottom, and it's of slightly of the color black. Okay. But we need to specify the width first, width, and then what type it is. So it is dotted, right? And then it's black. Okay. So now let's see how does it look like. Okay, so it looks almost we are at it. The color might not be the exact color that we have, but now what is remaining in our page? What do you all see? Many things, he just says. It looks like yeah, alignment and animation. Right. So now see, the color will fix it, but the alignment is an issue. So for all these h2 tags, what do we need to give? So should we give a margin or should we give a padding? Now there are two things. Let's try to see what a padding is. I'll open this in a console and I'll select this element. And let's just try to see. This red one is already the margin, right? It already has some margin from the top. Let's specify some padding from the left and let's see what happens. So if we gave this padding from the left, you see that this applied to this H2, but this did not apply for the border, right? So this border, it does not apply to that, but over here it's for both of them. So now let's try to see some margin of the left. Now let's say 1 em. Now you see that it applies to both of them. So what happens is, in case of padding, it's just for the content, right? So from here you can also understand the difference between these two concepts, the padding and margin. So the margin actually, first let's discuss about the padding. So the padding, if you see this green space, let me just increase it to 10 em, something like that. This is the green space. This is the uh, distance within the element. So this H2 element is this entire selected element. So this content, how much is it separated from the element inside? So the padding generally is inside, and that's why you see the bottom border, it has not shifted, right? It is still there. But what happens when we say it's the margin? In that case, the entire H2 block gets shifted by that amount from the page, right? So we have given a margin to the left. So margin is like segregating from the outside. Padding is like segregating within. So this is a common interview question that gets asked. What's the difference between these two things? So make sure you have got it. If any doubts are there, please do ask. Okay. Anybody who did not understand this thing? So let's just give some margin left of 1 em, right? I think that should be good to go. And or let's give 2 em. Okay, and I'll just specify it in the code. Now, if you see, this gets applied to all the tags. So it looks kind of similar now, right? Kind of similar. The text is white inside these and the color is a little darker. So let's just see what color it is. I'll just inspect and see what color it is. It's actually background color is this. I'll just copy this and I'll say this is the background color and the color is white. Okay. If you just compare it with our page now, it looks the same. Now what else is missing? This text looks a bit different. So this looks a bit different. Why? Because it has some different font formatting. If you see, the font is a bit different. Yeah, the font family is a bit different. So let's just change this font family also. So we have given a different font to our entire body, right? Now let's try to refresh. You see it looks kind of the same. The padding is the margin is a little larger on our side, but that's okay. So we have almost achieved it. Now, what is the thing that's missing? Let's take 5 more minutes and try to fix, yeah, some which says hover. So when we are hovering over this, at that moment, the CSS is getting changed. So how do we do that? Isha has provided it. So basically what we can do is we can provide this h1 a class on hover, right? So when somebody hovers over this, in that case, the background color will get changed. So let's just change the background color to be, let's say, white and the text color to be blue. Okay. Oh, sorry, color to be blue, my bad. And now let's try to see what happens. Now you see that we got this animation. So that's how like we can create some kind of animations on using this CSS, right? So this class gets applied only, and sorry, this hover is, let's just also see what happens to the HTML, right? So is there anything that is getting changed on the HTML? Yes or no? No, right? The HTML remains the same, right? Only the styling gets differed, right? So when we hover over this, basically what happens is this these rules apply now. These properties apply, right? So just try to uh, find out how exactly this is working internally, right? How this style gets applied, like what happens beneath. Just try to look at the documentation and try to do it as a research kind of exercise for this session. Okay. So now one more thing. Let's say if somebody clicks at that, clicks at a particular heading, we just want to show them the alert that simply, let's say, displays the content of this particular heading. So how can we do that? So there comes the JavaScript where we want the interactivity in the pages, right? Yeah, we can use some kind of after and before effect, but we want to show some alert. So alert we cannot do in CSS, right? Alert is a JavaScript method. So I'll just briefly show it to you. It's optional, like we won't be using the JavaScript from the next sessions. We'll be using completely Python Django. So I'll just say in h1 tag we want to have, let's say, on click. On click is a property. On click we want to show alert, and what we want to show is this tags HTML. So this tags inner content. So this dot element dot inner content, something like that. I do not remember the exact syntax over here. So what I'll do is I'll just print an alert of hello. Okay. Or let me use this inside the single quotes. Okay. Now let's just try to see what happens when we click this. You see that this page says hello. So that's how you bring interactivity in your web pages, right? So we won't be needing JavaScript. We'll be doing all these things from Django itself. Yes, inner HTML is there, but so somehow we can access the document here, window dot. Let me try with this dot inner HTML. Okay, it says undefined. Let me simply console log what is this. When we are clicking this, so it's this JavaScript has a this variable that's getting set. So let's just see what happens in the console. In the console, you can see any kind of console log. Basically, it's like cout in your C++ or print in your Python. Okay, let's just click this, and it will say that this element is being clicked, right? After clicking, it is printing what is being clicked, right? So we can simply say this dot, let me just store it in a global variable, right? Let's just say store as global variable, and let's just say temp1 dot inner HTML. It says temp1 dot inner HTML is introduction, right? So what we can say is inside the alert, we need the value. So I can say alert of this dot inner HTML, right? And let's just try this now. So you see that this introduction, this page says introduction, right? So this is very simple JavaScript. We won't be needing it. So now, have you got a brief idea on what all can we do on the client side? From the next session, we'll be looking mostly on the server side. Okay, so we built almost the same stuff, right? Awesome. So this is it from today's session. I hope you got a brief overview. I'll quickly recollect what all we discussed today, right? And before that, I'll have a short quiz. Just one more terminology I wanted to introduce. Okay, so basically, what is a static page and what is a dynamic page? So we'll get to it in the next session in more detail, but to briefly tell, like static pages, yeah, I'll say share the notes, all the notes with actually. So a static page is whatever you have sent from the server, that same file is being rendered. When you click on an element, nothing happens. When you, let's say, when you submit something, nothing happens. Or basically there is no kind of interactivity. Whatever pages you see, like in your scalar page, if you search for something, you will see that once you have entered something in the search bar, you will be able to see some kind of suggestions, right? So that's how this interactive pages are. So in Google, if you just search for something, let's say that hello world, you see that you get some suggestions very quickly. So this is an interactive page. You are doing something, giving some input, and you are getting some kind of output, right? So these are kind of dynamic pages which change the content of, it change the HTML based on some input from the user or some action from the user, right? So I'll write it down. So where the HTML content gets changed based on the actions of user, right? We will be building dynamic pages in Django. So we will use something called as the Django templates. So this is something for the next session. Okay. So I hope you have got the brief idea of all this stuff we have discussed today. We started with what happens when we visit something, a brief recap. What is client side, what is server side, what is HTML, and what all are the building blocks of HTML. That is basically a attribute tag. Tag is the building block. Then we have attributes to provide some extra info. And we have the content. We have the entire thing as an element. We have the structure, block level elements, inline elements. We show some of the basic tags. And then we looked at how can we style things, and we briefly introduced you to what are dynamic pages, right? Like here we were clicking something, getting some output, right? So now you have the next steps for you. So that is basically go through the docs and uh, basically go through the references that we will be sharing and try to build a static page that is, let's say, your own portfolio. Like, just to get some hands-on practice, you can just show something about yourself and try to install Django and some IDE, or you can use VS Code before the next session. Come installed with Django. The instructions are there in your follow the instructions in the e-lecture content for the next session. And one interesting announcement, that is from the next session, you will be having assignment for each and every class. So there will be auto evaluated assignments that you have to submit. So you will be submitting a Django assignment that will be evaluated on our end, and you will be given some points. Okay, so I'll share them just after the class. Okay, and you can install in any operating system. You can install it in Windows or Linux or anything that you have. Manish, unfortunately, like I had it earlier, but I do not have it so nicely organized right now. Okay. So I'll show you one more interesting thing that you can explore. That is GitHub Pages. So it allows you to host your uh, static sites. Like you can create your username .github.io. Okay. You can just explore on this. I'll try to add some reference for this as well. You can create a simple static website for your portfolio over to GitHub Pages. And I think that's it. That's it for the session. Anybody has any questions? Okay, Sambit already have it. That's awesome. .io is just like we have .com, Pratik. So just some kind of naming mechanism. Let me just go through it and see how it looks like. Okay, so Sambit, it's really good. Nice. Okay, let's Roshan has it hosted on somewhere else. We can work on project with this. Right, Isha, but this will be a very simple static site. Like it won't have too much of things. We will be building some dynamic stuff, right, from the next session. We'll see Django. We'll see what are the concepts and what you can do, how powerful it is, right? So make sure from next session you attend regularly, because from for each session we'll have some small assignments, and at the end we'll be having a large project. Trello like application you will be building. You will be building a Trello like application that allows you to create some kind of boards, some kind of uh, lists and tasks inside those lists. So you'll be writing the backend for that, and the views also. So it will be really exciting. Okay. So that's it from my side. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them. So I'll just check if there is anything that I've missed on. Let me share my screen. Stop sharing my screen. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah, so that's mostly it. Like make sure that you have this Django setup so that it will be easier for you to work with the next assignment. For today's session, there is no assignment as such. We'll try to add some MCQs, and you can just practice HTML, CSS, and try to build a static portfolio page and maybe share it with your friends, right? So I'll start the doubt session then in case anybody has any doubts. Okay. Those who want to leave, you can just make sure that you are ready with the next session with the Django installed. We'll be working on some awesome projects, some awesome concepts we'll be learning. Okay. No doubts. Okay. Roshan, let me just open it. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a good night and see you the next time. We'll start with Django. It looks good enough. I think you have a lot of animations in your page. question. That's awesome. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, Manish. Thank you, everybody. Awesome. Then let's. I see no doubts coming. Any questions coming? Oh, your username, Manish, is just so complete. Well, this looks like. Oh, okay. You have built a online educational platform. That's great. Okay, then with that, let's call it a day. Then we'll see you the next time, everybody. If I'll still wait if there is any question, any general question you have, any kind of. Yeah. No, it seems fine. Then all of you take care, and then see you all. Bye bye.